Aloha and a wonderful good morning, everybody. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from Livestream.travel in Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm here for eTurboNews and more important for the World Tourism Network. World Tourism Network, as you know, started back with our rebuilding.travel discussion in March of 2020, what is almost a year ago, on the sideline of the ITB trade show in Berlin. ITB never happened, but our event happened at the Grand Hyatt Hotel. And this discussion now has grown to tourism professionals, both from the private and the public sectors in 126 countries. So we've become quite global. World Tourism Network was formed in December of last year with daily events. Many of you were part of it. I know Stephen from New York was part of every single event. So thank you for being part of this one again. And we have come a long way. Today, it's the second time we focus on a small but very progressive island nation, what is St. Kitts in the Caribbean. And before I introduce you to the Honorable Minister who's attending us today, I wanted to recognize just a few people, including Alexandra. She runs our Balkan chapter. She's in Montenegro. Welcome, Alexandra. And of course, I wanted to recognize, as always, Dr. Peter Tarlow, our co-host based in Texas. He told me it's quite cold where he is, so I'm sure he wishes he was in St. Lucia. Peter, before we start, let me get you the first word here.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone. Yes, my friend Jürgen is absolutely right. When the gentleman from the Ukraine said it was quite cold, it was -15. Just so you know, this morning in Texas, where it's usually 20 degrees positive, today it was -14. So we're in competition with you. We're looking forward to next week going back to warmer weather, but this has been a real challenge for us. I first got to St. Kitts about 10 years ago. I had the honor of training police at the beautiful Marriott Hotel there and going throughout the entire island and meeting people. If you haven't been there, it's one of the true jewels of the Caribbean. And I believe I mentioned my new book on security in the Caribbean came out today through the University of the West Indies. And some of you may also know many of the people in Jamaica with whom I work. And Andrew Spencer and I are co-sponsor writers in that book. So we'll be getting that information, especially for those of you who are in the Caribbean, out because it deals with every aspect of Caribbean security. But today we're going to be focusing not on the entire region, but on the Eastern Caribbean and St. Kitts. It's a very small island. It's connected with Nevis, but it's an absolutely beautiful island. And it's our pleasure to have the Minister of Tourism, Graham, who is going to be with us. And first, he'll tell us a little bit about his island, and then I'm sure we'll have a number of questions. And this is meant as a dialogue and not a monologue, so please be interactive.
And Peter, just one thing, we're getting more and more people watching live now on our various news channels on eTurboNews and Livestream, Travel Wire News, Hawaii News Online, and many of the other channels who are watching us now. If you still wanted to be part of this event, you can still do this. It's not too late. You can register at worldtourismevents.com. Go to worldtourismevents.com, and you can actually be part of this audience. If not, and if you watch this at a later time when we're no longer live, feel free to email any type of comments or questions to us. Like always, we're going to keep this interactive even days later. And without further delay, I'm very honored to have the Honorable Minister Grant joining us from St. Kitts, and he will fill you in, ask questions, and give an update how everything is in this beautiful paradise in the Caribbean. Welcome, Minister.
Good morning to all.
Well, good afternoon.
We just say good. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are in the world, you get a good.
Correct. Well, just let me say a few things about St. Kitts. And first of all, I must thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on your eTurboNews to basically get our message out. Now, St. Kitts and Nevis, I would like to coin as the quintessential Caribbean. I think St. Kitts and Nevis is what the Caribbean used to be. And I think Peter alluded to it when he opened, in that I don't think there's anywhere in St. Kitts and Nevis you can go for a 10-mile radius and you don't find some historical context dating back some 300, 400, 500 years, from our majestic Brimstone Hill, which is a World Heritage Site, to the first land grant in the east in the hemisphere, which was owned by Jefferson, some 1,000 acres, who is the great-great-grandfather of Thomas Jefferson, to the first landing point in the Western Hemisphere in Old Road, St. Kitts. So St. Kitts and Nevis is steeped in history. And so we have preserved that to ensure that what we have now is a traveler who is not just looking for sun, sand, and sea, but it's a traveler that's looking for something that touches the heart and gives him a very, very fond memory. That is how I'll open, Peter.
Yes. And by the way, I think you, if I'm not mistaken, also Alexander Hamilton came from St. Kitts and Nevis.
That's correct.
He actually, you may not be aware, Mr. Minister, tremendous influence on the whole development of the United States. He studied at one of the Jewish schools in St. Kitts and Nevis, and brought the knowledge of the Bible in the original Hebrew back to the United States. And that's how we got many of our commentaries, many of our sayings come actually, we're almost daughter of St. Kitts and Nevis. So thank you for everything you've done for the United States.
Absolutely, because he was one of the founding fathers.
Yes,
he was. As a matter of fact, I think he was the first Secretary of the Treasury.
He was.
Under George Washington. So yeah, so we have good linkage with the United States, certainly.
Maybe we can start in just getting a little bit of an overview. Before we went live, we already discussed a little bit where St. Kitts is, but maybe for everyone, where is St. Kitts? How big is St. Kitts? What's it to do? Are you an independent country? Are you a territory? Tell us a little bit more about St. Kitts.
Absolutely. Well, St. Kitts and Nevis is a federation. So 2 islands making 1 country, so to speak. We're about 53,000 people total between the two. And we are an independent nation, having attained our independence from Great Britain in 1983. Our total land mass is about 100 square kilometers. And so not big, but not small either. And our main industry, as you would be aware, is tourism. Tourism is the economic driver in St. Kitts and Nevis, followed by manufacturing. But tourism accounts for somewhere in the region of 60% of our GDP, both indirect and direct. And the direct contribution to our GDP is in the region of 28.2% thereabout. So it's very, very significant. And true to form, the pandemic and the effects of the pandemic has really caused a strain on not only tourism in St. Kitts and Nevis, but the entire economy.
Now, when you, of course, it has ruined and been a challenge for many nations around the world, but island nations are uniquely positioned. And we have been reported about many island destinations, not only in the Caribbean. I know the former honorable minister from the Seychelles, Alain, was trying to join us a little bit later. Hopefully he has a chance, but we have reported a lot about the Seychelles, and Seychelles numbers really go up and down depending on how they're open for tourism. Where I am in Hawaii, we're not an independent nation. Many want us to be a kingdom, but we're part of the United States. And we have seen a big difference between the outbreak of corona here in our state compared to the rest of the United States. We have the lowest numbers of any state, even with tourism now slowly picking up. Now, how's the situation St. Kitts is quite unique, because we had a session not too long ago with one of Peter's contact. I think he was a member of the police department or military.
The military.
Military.
And,
yes, and he came back to St. Kitts and he gave us a little bit of an overview how St. Kitts has been handling the crisis, because you really had no cases as to speak of, almost no cases.
Almost.
I don't think you had anyone dying on the virus, as far as I know.
No one died so far.
And you don't have any type of secret medicine either. No one knows about. So how did you do that?
Well, I think, first of all, I should tell you that our borders were really opened on October the 31st of 2020. And I think we rolled out some of the most complete and comprehensive travel requirements in the Caribbean. And for that reason, we were able to have significant advantage. The other thing I would say is that we had an all of society approach, which meant that each and every individual was tasked with the responsibility of keeping us safe and keeping us healthy. And I think that went a long way. We educated the population for months on end about the virus. And so we made sure that everyone knew that they had to wear masks. We made sure that everyone knew that they had to social distance. We made sure that everyone knew that they had to sanitize hands regularly. And that went a long way in determining what the outcome and the consequences were at the end of the day. As a matter of fact, as I speak to you today, our numbers have only been 41 in total. No deaths, 39 recovered, 2 active. And that's the state as of today. And that's because we had a rigorous set of protocols to ensure that we had no community spread. Because what we did not want is our health facilities to become overburdened with this virus. And so we had to take this very, very, very seriously. Some people say we took it too seriously, but I don't think, given the nature of the virus and what we have seen on national TVs all across the world, I think it's the pandemic is one that one has to be very careful with and ensure that the citizens, residents, and visitors alike are safe. And so we had stringent measures. For example, very early o'clock, we said that anyone coming to St. Kitts or Nevis had to take the nasopharyngeal RT-PCR test. You could not come without that. Number one, you had to get that 72 hours before you boarded the plane. You had to get that. On arrival, we went through a process of screening with you. And if you showed any signs or symptoms of the virus, we then tested you again to make sure. And then we had something we put in place called vacation in place, because we were concerned that, yes, we still wanted the influx of visitors. Yes, we knew that they would not be as significant as before, pre-pandemic, but we still wanted visitors to come. So we put something in place called a vacation in place, whereby you came to your hotel once it was travel approved by the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Health. You came to the hotel. You had facilities in the hotel that you can use for the 7 days, but you could not venture outside of your facility. But on the 7th day, you were tested. And if you tested negative, you were allowed to come out of your hotel and go into designated tours, which the Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Health had approved. So you could have gone to the Brimstone Hill, you could have done the historic Bastille tour, you could have gone to the Southeast Peninsula at Timothy Hill. Those were designated by us. So we didn't want you really to get into the community per se, but we still wanted to have the advantage of being able to see some sites, et cetera, et cetera. And that worked well for us. And so we feel that we managed it pretty okay. And I think the proof of the pudding, they say, is in the eating, and the numbers speak for themselves.
Wow, a very different approach. And your hotels, did they stay open throughout, ever since you opened in October?
We have stayed open. We have not had a lockdown as some of the islands around us. We have not had curfew since. And because we've contained the virus. We have a very narrow containment window to make sure, because we have a very sophisticated tracing system to ensure that even if something happens, we can trace back every single person who may have come in contact with that particular individual. And it has worked well for us.
Minister, how do you enforce after the 7 days, if the person is found to be negative, you let them start coming back into the island? How do you enforce that they follow just those protocols and they don't go someplace where they would integrate into the general population?
Excellent question. We have travel approved vehicles. Those persons would have been trained both by the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Health in the particular protocols. So they know they can't go outside of their designated areas. And fortunately, we have not had an infraction since that. So we've been very fortunate in that regard, because as you would recognize, at the end of the day, it probably comes down to the driver being consistent in following the protocols for it to happen.
So a person cannot rent a car if they, during that second 7-day period, they have to use an approved car and an approved driver. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When guests stay in a hotel, we had the same situation in Hawaii, where we required guests to stay in a designated hotel, and they were not allowed, literally not allowed, to leave the room except to go and get medical care. And you said guests, when they arrive, they can wander around the hotel. Is the hotel fully functioning? Is the pool open? Can they go to the beach? And so they can actually enjoy a vacation, right?
Absolutely. So I'm glad you raised that. They can use the bars, they can use the restaurants, they can use the beach, they can use the amenities, because we have them in a contained bubble. So we determine that if we have a travel approved hotel, that in and of itself is a bubble.
Yes.
And we protect the workers, so the workers protect the visitors, and we are very robust in the protocols. So we allow you not to be locked up in a room, but to wander around your hotel and on the beach and, enjoy the amenities just as you would, except with a few restrictions.
Now, when you're talking about the workers, of course, workers interact with guests. How do you protect the workers, and how do you protect the communities these workers live in?
Well, the robust protocols. They absolutely have to have on a mask at all times. The high traveled areas, very, very clean. The hand sanitization and the distances. And those have worked well for us, and we've not had an outbreak. So we're pretty confident that we can continue with these protocols.
Have you started to vaccinate people?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because our vaccines are here. And I think we will roll out that sometime next week in vaccinating the population.
Which vaccine, may I ask, are you using?
It's the Oxford AstraZeneca.
Okay, so this
is what we're using, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
And of course, I've never been to St. Kitts, so excuse my ignorance, but I would assume, similar to some of the resorts on our neighbor islands here in Hawaii, you're dealing with open buildings, so where people are really not enclosed in cement blocks that much. You're enjoying the pool. People stay outside where you can actually maintain the distance. Is that the case for St. Kitts?
That is the case.
Okay. Okay. So now, when it comes to masks, we're having a discussion on this news network right now about the type of mask people should be wearing, and maybe that is kind of a mute discussion for St. Kitts because you have such an open environment. But there are huge differences between the masks required, for instance, in Germany, compared to what masks are required in the United States. According to US CDC guidelines, the cloth mask is completely acceptable, and so is the surgical mask. According to guidelines by the German health authorities, the cloth mask is now illegal, and the surgical mask is only allowed outside and not in buildings. In buildings, you're supposed to wear the FFP2 mask in Germany, what is similar to the N95, possibly in the United States, the KN95 in China, or the N94 in Korea. How's the situation in St. Kitts?
Well, what you've just told me is very complex and complicated.
Right.
And we keep it simply stupid.
Yes.
A mask is a mask. So you can use the disposable mask or the cloth mask. And there's no distinction or differentiation as far as we are concerned and as far as the law here is concerned. So we don't distinguish the two, because when you start to distinguish, then you're going to have an enormous amount of difficulty and problems. And so we keep it simple.
And of course, you have a different environment altogether. So it may, that's what I said, it may not be such a big issue for a destination like St. Kitts.
Yeah.
It's also a difference in costs. And a place like St. Kitts is not going to spend $4 3 times a day for people. It's just overwhelming, the cost factor. So yes, I think a mask is a mask. I understand where you're coming from. Tell us, what are some of the opportunities, or at some point, Corona is going to go away, COVID is going to go away. How do you see St. Kitts developing as part of the Caribbean, as an independent world? Will it be, you know, the Caribbean is often dominated by sun and sand. And sometimes people say, well, empty to one place, it's like being to another. So finding a way of being part of a group and yet distinguishing from the group is really important. What are your visions for St. Kitts, assuming that we could get COVID to go away tomorrow?
Well, let me put it this way. We have not been a country that thrives on mass tourism.
Right.
Like I said, Martin and those countries. We prefer to have persons who are experiential. We have some beautiful craters and mountains, and we want people to explore. And for that reason, we're not big on all-inclusives. As a matter of fact, we don't have one all-inclusive, because we want persons to come to the hotels and to go out and experience the real true lifestyle of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that's why when I began, I said it's like the quintessential Caribbean. We want you to taste our magnificent cuisine, interact with the locals, those sort of things. And we think that is where we have our added advantage. As I said earlier, it's not really for us about sand and sea and sun, but it's really about taking back where you came from, an experience of a lifetime. And that's what we are selling, an experience of a lifetime. And I believe today, in today's world, the visitor is a more discerning visitor than he was 40, 50 years ago. 40, 50 years ago, I think a visitor just wanted to come bask in the sun and go to the beach. I think the visitor now is a discerning visitor. He's going to say, well, how is St. Kitts and Nevis different from the rest of the Caribbean? Yes. How is this place different? Not that you lump all of us together and you say we're the same, because if you really know the Caribbean, we are vastly different.
Yes.
St. Kitts and Nevis is different from Dominica, which is a nature island, which, you know, rolling mountains and rivers. You know, the people have Creole in them. Each island has a distinct difference. Our difference, I believe, is in our history, because contextually, we've grown through sugar plantations up to 2005. We came into tourism very late, 2005, when we had to close the sugar industry and find another industry. And that's where tourism came from, 2005. So when Peter came to St. Kitts maybe 10 years ago, we were still in our embryonic stages of development in tourism, because the Marriott would have been one of the first major hotels that had gone down in St. Kitts.
I believe it was the first major hotel and the largest hotel in St. Kitts at the time.
Absolutely. And it still is. It still is the largest hotel development.
It's a beautiful hotel.
And I wanted to, I'm sorry.
But as you know, we have now the Park Hyatt, which is on the Southeast Peninsula, which is a magnificent 5-star hotel, 126 rooms. We have the Four Seasons in Nevis, 196 rooms, I think it is. We have the Jacta Village. We have on stream to come. We have a Ritz-Carlton. And so we're getting there slowly but surely. Yes. And so we are pacing ourselves. We don't want to run ahead of ourselves, but we think in terms of tourism, you must bring the people along with tourism. You can't leave them behind. Yes. And so that even if we go at a slower pace, it's better for us if the people are developing at the same pace or even greater than the industry is developing.
Yes. Minister, when I was in St. Kitts, which was a while ago, of course, I had the advantage that I was training the police, and they took me out every night and took me all around St. Kitts. But I've never been to Nevis. What's the difference? Are they very similar? How are the two islands? I only know one part of your country. I don't know the other part. So for those of us who are a little confused, what are they the same, different? What makes each one special?
I get that question all the time. And every time I get that question, I think I have a different answer.
Okay.
But the core of the answer still remains. Nevis is a quieter, much quainter island than St. Kitts is. It has the people, of course. It's a small island, I believe, and it's a really outpouring of their souls to visitors. It has less history than us in terms of the island, but still is steeped in history, because Peter, as you said, Alexander Hamilton came from Nevis. But we like to look at ourselves as two islands, one paradise. That's what we sell. So we say you can't come to St. Kitts and don't go to Nevis, and vice versa. You can't go to Nevis and don't come to St. Kitts. And so that's how we sell it, and we hope we sell it well.
And I wanted to just remind everybody, if you have any questions or you wanted to weigh in, feel free to do this. You can raise your hand virtually. You don't have to raise it like this, but you can do it virtually. And we give you the microphone. There was a question from Denise Aliong Thomas. Denise, instead of me reading it, do you wanted to ask your question directly? If you do, just unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to find out where most of your visitors are coming from.
And Denise, just to say, I'm so sorry, maybe you can introduce, I know Denise where you are, you're in Trinidad, right? Just everyone to say, for those that are not here that often, just say where you're from, and Denise from Trinidad asked this question.
Yeah,
yes.
Denise Aliong Thomas, are you hearing me clearly?
We hear you like you're next door.
Okay, so I'm Aliong Thomas. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, president of the Small Tourism Accommodation Owners of Trinidad and Tobago. I also own a small guest house in Port of Spain, and I'm also a certified tour guide. I'd just like to know where most of your visitors are coming from between August to now.
Well, still from our major source markets of the United States, Canada, and the UK. So that really has not shifted in terms of that specific point. And so we still, of course, it's a big drop off from what we are accustomed to, but nevertheless, they're still coming.
Okay.
And good day to Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, thank you. And then had Tekia Minsky had a comment. Tekia, are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, where are you from?
I'm from New York.
New
Actually,
York.
it's not too cold in New York today.
Okay.
No, but Texas is coming to you, so just bundle up.
Thank you.
But your comment, I think, was you were applaud.
Actually, I had a few comments, but one was I think at this point the health protocols are one of the strongest points right now because so many of us are really concerned about where and how to travel, and to find a place with such strong health protocols is a real great selling point. So that was a comment.
Right.
And the other thing is what I like know people that want to go somewhere for a month or 2 months. Is there accommodations like I don't know, bed and breakfast or whatever that can accommodate not in a hotel situation but in a longer term stay on your island?
I'm glad you raised that. Yes, there are a number of condominium developments, condominium/hotel developments that lend itself to a longer staying visitor. So yes, those types we accommodate a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Minister, tell us a little bit about what is the type of typical cuisine that people have? Is it different from other Caribbean places, or how would I know a St. Kittian cuisine if I came across one?
Kittishan.
St.
Kittishan. Well, I believe our cuisine feeds off of many different cuisines around the world. I think that's how we develop. But really, a typical meal would be something like the rice and peas, saltfish, green bananas, okras. That's that sort of thing. That healthy, so to speak, dishes. That's what you'll get locally. Something we call like goat water, which is the goat mixed up and it's like a soup. So those I think are indigenous, maybe not to St. Kitts alone, but parts of the Caribbean.
And we have 3 people raising their hand. Let's start with Stephen. Stephen, if you want to turn your camera on, it'll be helpful. If not, of course, you can unmute yourself and speak without camera. You raised your hand. Go ahead and tell us where you're from, please. Stephen Weir, go ahead. Okay, looks like Stephen may have problem with the microphone. Stephen, can you hear us? Okay, then let's go to Vadim. And I cannot pronounce your last name, so I don't want to try. But you see his picture here. Where you're from, Vadim?
My name is Grabarchuk. It's a little bit maybe difficult to pronounce. Mr. Grant, it's very interesting presentation. And
I'm sorry, Vadim. Can you let the people know where you're from? I know where you're from. You told me earlier,
sorry,
but many don't know.
I'm from Ukraine. I'm based in Kiev. I represent company France Group, which are based in Kiev and in France, in Paris, with small office also.
Thank you.
So the question is, as I represent Eastern European market, I suppose we need a visa to come to islands, St. Kitts and Nevis. And tell me, please, if you know which authority gives the visa. Maybe it's a British embassy or other authority represent consulate of your islands, if you know.
Well, in the first case, I'm not too certain that you need a visa. And the reason why I'm saying that is because our passport is one of the top passports in the world, allowing you visa-free entry into like 160 countries around the world.
Okay.
So I'm not sure in your instance that you need, but in any event, you're in Ukraine. That's a tough one. I suspect the closest to you may be in terms of our consulate, would be in London, I believe. But we have a process of online where you can get your visa online. You go through the Ministry of National Security. You produce the particular elements of what is required along with the application, and you can get your visa online. So that's not a problem.
It should be great. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and stay warm in Ukraine. And we have Chima, James. Chima, where are you from? And unmute yourself, please.
I'm in Nigeria. I'm speaking from Nigeria.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm a travel agent. I want to ask a few questions. Honorable Grant, there are some Nigerians schooling in your country. And because of the COVID, some of them are stranded coming back home. When will you open the air border that some of them can travel back? And that's number one. Number two, there are difficulties, getting a direct flight from Nigeria. Either you go via London or you go through Paris. What are you doing to have more connecting flights into St. Kitts?
Well, I'm glad you said that. First of all, let me say there are a number of Nigerian students here studying at one or more of our offshore universities. I am not aware, however, that they are stranded per se, because our borders are open, so they are free to leave. And right now, how our flights are running, of course, they're running on a very subdued basis, but we have 3 flights a week direct into Miami. We have 1 flight a week. We have 1 flight a week heading into Gatwick, London, and that might be the easiest passage. Or they can take the flight into St. Martin and then fly over to Charles de Gaulle Airport in France. So there are avenues for them to get back to Nigeria, although at this point in time it may be a bit challenging, but it's not something that cannot be done.
Thank you very much. And we have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a follow-up question to that. Can I do that?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. For Nigerians to fly via Gatwick, they will need a British transit visa. And if they have to fly via St. Martin's and then to Charles de Gaulle, they need Schengen transit visa. What can you do to alleviate the suffering so that they don't need to pass through this hurdle? Is there anything you can do? If they go via Istanbul, if there's any way they can go via Istanbul, because Turkey is not part of the European Union, they can transit free. Going via London, they need a visa. Going via Charles de Gaulle, they need a visa. But if you can open up to Istanbul, that will be easier for them because they may not need transit visa. Going via Miami, they can't go via US because they will need US transit visa. So what can you help? If you can open up to Istanbul, that will give them transit visa free for them to return home.
Okay, thank you for your comment. That's something that we will certainly have to look into. Cannot do anything at the moment, but I appreciate the complexity of that, and it's something I'll have my colleagues look into.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You can see international visa restrictions, how they could become even more complicated in times of COVID. And we see this even destinations we as Americans wanted to travel to, even to my home country, Germany, becomes a challenge. So we're living in a different world, and I can definitely appreciate these situations, and a goodwill, of course, and flexibility among countries to facilitate such travelers. Before we go to Stephen Brown, Peter, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, I was going to say the other side of that, Jürgen, and maybe the minister might want to comment about this, is that there's talk, I realize that has not really taken place in most parts of the world, for something to be added to people's passports or a insert for those people who have had both vaccinations and others who are fully vaccinated, so that it'll be easier to come in, etc. You may not have to have the 14 days of quarantine. Are you all thinking about anything like that, or do you have any information you can share with people about, is there a chance the world may slowly reopen by the use of international passport visas that will say a medical visa, a green visa?
Well, I've heard the talk in fact about the visa with the
I think they call it a
card
green
or
visa.
whatever with the pandemic. What I would say, however, where we are at this point is that the Ministry of Health is still looking at what the science is.
Yes.
Meaning, we know we are in a very fluid situation. Something changes every day, every week with this COVID-19. Even down to the variants that are now on stream.
Yes.
And so our Ministry of Health is looking at that very carefully. So what I can tell you is that what we want first are two things. One, we want to get at least 70% of our population immunized against the COVID-19,
Yes.
which gives us a kind of herd immunity. We want others like North America or whomsoever to get to a particular standard also. Because I believe what is going to happen, not now, because our Ministry of Health is still very tight on protocols. So what they are saying, if Peter comes in and Peter shows me that, look, I have been, I have my 2 shots of COVID, I'm good to go. The Ministry of Health and the protocols now would still be, you have to go into vacation in place quarantine, so to speak. And the Ministry of Health is saying that position will not change unless and until the science tells them that it is okay. So I believe we have still, it's a work in progress. I believe importantly, the next 2-3 months will be important as the world begins to get the vaccines out and get persons immunized as to how now we will deal with persons coming in who have now taken the vaccine. Because I am of the firm view, if we are saying that one, with the vaccine, you won't get sick badly or you won't die, I'm saying no, we have to adjust the protocols. That's me, but I'm not a doctor, nor am I a medical expert, so I'll have to leave it to them. But my own layman's viewpoint would be, I believe once a particular amount of persons have been vaccinated, the protocols must change to reflect that process.
Now, and this probably answers the question from Michael Sarney, who asked, I'm reading an article at this moment regarding destinations lifting restrictions for tourists who have a vaccination certificate. I noticed St. Kitts is not on that list. Is there any plan to accommodate this? And I think, Minister, you just responded to this. Michael added in his comment that Marriott is already creating an extended stay package for 2021. What is good to know is, and I think this is maybe a new trend in hotels. I'm on the top tier with Hyatt. I stayed more than 150 nights at Hyatt the year before when we were able to travel. And I really got invitations to go to God knows how many Hyatts in the world and stay a month and work from there. And this might be very well a new trend. But Stephen Brown has been, and Minister, I don't know if you wanted to say something.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Stephen Brown is one of our most, as I said in the beginning, most loyal participants. He is from New York with a British accent. I think from what I remember, you work for American Airlines, but you have your own tour company and you had a question. So of course, go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you, Jürgen and Peter. Awfully nice to be here once again. It's a most interesting discussion that we're having today. And I'm awfully happy that it's happening actually, because I have a very warm place in my heart for St. Kitts and Nevis. I've been there quite a number of times, and I would certainly highly recommend visiting both of the islands, St. Kitts and Nevis. Minister Grant, what I would like to ask you, I am a travel advisor here in New York, and I do have quite a lot of clients who travel by the ships, cruising quite a lot. And as a lot of people know, that St. Kitts is well known as a very excellent port to visit. Now, your fantastic port, Port Zante, which I've got to say is really beautiful, and anyone visiting there, the shops are fantastic. You've got to go there and visit the shops. My question to you is, what protocols will be in place you're thinking about for when the cruises return, and what will you do in order to ensure that your healthy track record for St. Kitts will remain and stay intact?
Well, Stephen, thanks for that question, difficult as it may be. I want to first put it in context, though. Before the pandemic, St. Kitts and Nevis boasts that we've had 1 million cruise passengers.
Indeed.
We are one of the most sought after cruise destinations, 1 million passengers. We did that in 2018. We did that in 2019. We were well on our way in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And so we are well known for cruising. Now, the problem is, you would imagine, and I should also say, we just built in Port Zante 2 brand new berths that can take the largest ships in the world side by side. It's the only port in the Caribbean that can hold 3 Oasis class ships at the same time. No other port. And that shows you how forward thinking we are. However, you would recognize that one of those ships bring 6,000 plus people. The health department and the health ministry has said to me, look, we are going to talk cruise in our second phase. We're not prepared to say what the protocols are going to be at this moment. And I can well understand, because they're going to have to grapple with 6,000 people coming off a ship on any given day into your country. That requires some serious thought process to determine what we do and how we do it before we proceed, because it has the ability to shatter our gains that we've made. And so it's something that we have to give some more thought to, although 1 million passengers is a lot to give up. So we will have to work that out. But obviously we're going to work in conjunction with the CDC and our own ministries of health to determine what exactly we do. Because, for example, are we going to have a situation where we create bubbles so that persons who come off the ship and want to do tours, we have specific tours? That may be the answer. I don't know. And so I believe over the next couple of months, we are going to be brainstorming, not only in the St. Kitts and Nevis, but I guess with my regional partners, to determine how we do it. Because another thing we have to look at is that St. Kitts might have a set of protocols, and some other country has a different set of protocols. And we believe we have to synchronize protocols for cruising so that the playing field is level and that the same protocols that you get here, you get elsewhere, so that we don't create a problem for the ship itself. And so these are thought processes that we have to begin to iron out.
Thank you very much. And don't worry,
we have not.
I've got your back. I'll make sure that my clients will go there.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, and we're coming slowly to the end of the time, but we have a few more questions. And I wanted to recognize also the Honorable Minister Vila Kati, who just left us. And I'm sorry if you hear this later. I know it was after midnight, well after midnight, 1 in the morning where you are. And Minister Bilakati is the Honorable Minister of Tourism for the Kingdom of Eswatini, who joined us earlier. Now, we have 2 more people lined up, and if there's anyone else who has a question, feel free to lay in. And I see a chat from Ashraf El Gatway from Egypt, but I don't know if he has a question or just wanted to say that he's on board, and we welcome you on board, of course. You're the site editor-in-chief of Arab Travel Portal News in Cairo. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and we give you the microphone. But let's go to Gwendolyn Parker. Gwendolyn, where are you from? What's your question?
Hi, I live here in Connecticut, but I have a place in Ocean's Edge in St. Kitts, and I love St. Kitts. I have been bringing my friends and family. I had a party there a few years ago with 55 people came. And enjoyed your beautiful island. So I consider it my island home, and I miss it very, very much.
Thank you, thank you.
But I had a question about, for me I'm planning to come for about 6 weeks in the summer. So for me to stay in quarantine for 2 weeks and then be allowed to, to move about is not so much of a hardship, but I have a lot of friends that want to come. And I'm just curious, after that week, will some of the beaches, going out to the beach at Spice Mill or at Carambola, or even the beautiful beach that used to be Banana Bay that you can now get to at the Park Hyatt. I'm just wondering what possibilities for sort of open air travel there might be for people who quarantine for a week, but then want to be able to see more of the island.
Okay. Gwendolyn, thanks for if I may call you that, thanks for your questions, and thank you for your investment in St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a very lovely place, Ocean's Edge. But to your question, yes, we can, because let me go back a bit, because we've had groups here. There are 2 groups here filming right now. One is Below Deck. I don't know if you've looked at that series.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it. Yes.
Okay, they're filming right now, and we've set up bubbles where they can go on the beaches, certain beaches, with the security to make sure there's no infraction. So we've done that on a case-by-case basis. So it's not something that is impossible to do. But I want to come back to your specific point also, which I didn't mention earlier, which I think now that you raised something, I should mention it, which I did mention before, which is, for example, if you're coming to St. Kitts, you own a home already, or condominium or villa already. You don't necessarily have to go to the sites of the Marriott, the Park Hyatt. You can quarantine at home.
Correct.
Once the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Health have certified your villa for a quarantine stay, you can quarantine there. And so we allow that. However, we only allow it with security. Reason being, when we started initially, and we allowed persons to quarantine at home or in their villa, there were several infractions. So persons felt they could come out, and so to avoid that, we say, okay, fine, you can quarantine in your villa, but we have to have security on you to make sure there's no infraction.
Go ahead, Peter. I'm sorry.
No, I was just wondering, I think that really clears up a lot. The solution is that we should all buy homes in St. Kitts.
Certainly. We welcome it.
Yes, but I wonder who else might have questions, because
we have just a few lined up here. And I wanted to, she has been very patiently waiting, Alexandra. And of course, Alexandra, all of you who are a member of the World Tourism Network know Alexandra. She's based in Montenegro, and she runs our Balkan chapter. Welcome, Alexandra. And you raised your hand earlier. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm enjoying listening to you guys. Thank you very much. I find this presentation very, very instructive and interesting. So I've learned a lot, and this is a great opportunity. And I'm very glad that there are places as St. Kitts, which is completely opposite of what's going on in Montenegro, but we will leave that topic for some other time. Actually, I wanted to ask the minister, I'm very much interested in technical issues regarding protocols, the minister mentioned that they have very sophisticated tracing system, monitoring tourists on arrivals and so on. And instead of maybe asking all those questions now, I would like to know if I could get in touch with some of his staff to get more details and more details on protocol by email or whatever in future period.
Sure. So can I give you those details?
Well, maybe the easiest is, the minister, if you don't want to put it in the open, Alexandra is very much an integrated part of our organization. Just send it to us. I'd be happy to forward it. And even better, I think if St. Kitts, we've pushed you, so I'm going to push you in the open. We would love for St. Kitts to join the World Tourism Network. So you're part of our global family and of our rebuilding.travel discussion. Actually, if St. Kitts joins us, you would be the 127th country. We don't have any members from your country, and we would very much welcome that.
Well, I certainly will have to get onto my team to do that, because I think the discussion here this afternoon and morning and evening, whatever time zone you're in, was very fruitful. And I think I too learned something along the way. So, you know, and it gives us a bit of exposure also. So
and you know that 127 is a lucky number. So you want to make sure to get that number right away.
Absolutely. So I'll get on to my team to get on to you. But I really appreciate it, and I'll forward have my people forward the details to you to pass on to Alexandria.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have a number of people here actually saying we also like to learn more. So we'd be happy to hopefully welcome St. Kitts in our family, and then we can all engage in the rebuilding.travel discussion with St. Kitts included. What we all welcome. And there's a lot of comments here, and they're all positive. I'm trying to look for something critical, and there aren't any. So we have no critical issues with you. But Peter, go ahead.
I had the sense that the minister, before we kind of cut him off, did want to say a few things about their protocols. If I misheard you, I apologize. But I had the sense that you wanted to share a few things with everybody. Did I hear you correctly, Minister, or did I misinterpret?
I think Alexandra I think what she was saying is that the protocols may be such that she prefers I send them through without her asking the question directly. I think that's
anything though that you'd like to share with everybody.
Yes, well, I can say, for example, in order to come to St. Kitts and Nevis at this time, one has to take the nasal pharyngeal RT-PCR test. And you have to take that 72 hours, not more than 72 hours before you travel. Once you have those results, you go to the site, which is KNA, St. Kitts KNA travelform.kn, and you must now upload your results to that site. And you must have also a hotel room booked on one of our travel approved hotels before you can come. But before you come, you have to get a letter which comes out from the Ministry of National Security, which gives you the benefit to come, which means that they've looked at all the forms, everything is in order, you have your negative PCR test, and then you can come. Once you arrive in St. Kitts or Nevis, we carry you through a screening process. So the health persons are on the airport, they're checking you out. If they feel that you have any symptom that's akin to the COVID-19, you must take the PCR test again. If it's negative, then you're allowed to leave. Obviously, if it's positive, you go into quarantine and isolation. And that's how it is. I must also tell you that if you are there more than 7 days and you want to do something more than the hotel and its amenities, you take another test on the 7th day. If that is negative, you are allowed to take tours that are designated by the Ministry of Tourism. If you're there beyond the 14 days, you take the test on the 14th day. If it's negative, you're allowed to integrate into the society just as normal. And so those are the protocols at the moment, except that now, when you are leaving, we require you to take another test. The reason being, and I must say that was before the CDC, who have now said that you need an exit PCR test. We've done that before them. So that's out there, because we want to make sure that when you leave here, you leave with a negative test, so that if anything happens thereafter, we can say, look, Mr. A left here with a negative test, you're good to go. You may have contracted it somewhere, but we tested you 48 hours before you left St. Kitts and you were negative. And so we follow those guidelines very stringently to ensure that our protocols are satisfied.
So you want everyone to leave with a positive feeling and a negative test.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
And I know
I love that. I love that. I love that.
So
positive feeling, negative test.
Right. And you may use that as part of your protocols.
Yes.
Right.
I don't have to write that down. I coinage that phrase.
Yes.
No, wonderful. We're actually over time, but there are two more people. And before we get to the two last sequence, I think there is an opportunity. You never have to leave St. Kitts at all. I heard something, maybe you can fill us in, about citizenship. You said you had one of the most known and best passports to travel everywhere around the visa, and you do citizenship for investment. How would that work?
I'm glad you asked. I wanted to make mention of it, but I figured that maybe it wasn't the forum, but I'm glad you asked. I want you to take note of this, that citizenship by investment, which is now all over the world, Canada, United Kingdom, Malta, all of those have their own programs. But I want to tell you, the first program started in St. Kitts and Nevis in 1984. We have been the longest running country doing that program since 1984. All others who have come after us have taken from us. We were the first. So I put that on the table. Secondly, we have one of the most robust and recognized programs in the world. As I said before, we have 160 countries visa-free, including Schengen. And you must understand how fantastic that is, because just this afternoon, my good friend from Nigeria raised the issue how complex it is for nationals in Nigeria to travel. And so our passport makes it ease of travel. And I think that is why a lot of persons invest in St. Kitts to get our passport to have an easier form of travel. And we've done a number of them, thousands of them we've done, and still try making sure that we maintain the integrity in the program, because it's very important. It's very important to maintain integrity in the program. So once somebody has a passport, that passport is a significant document, and one that ought not to be used lightly. And so we try to make sure our systems are par excellence to ensure that we deliver a product that we say is supposed to be delivered in its highest form, citizenship.
And that, of course, is a challenge. You know, I was always very surprised when countries offer their citizenship for sale. I know how much I worked on back in the 80s to become US citizenship, and I didn't pay any extra money for it. But then again, I'm alarmed when a country like Malta generates a citizenship, and then all of a sudden every EU country has to recognize this, and the citizen can work in all the other EU countries. So it is an enormous responsibility to make sure those people that are granted citizenship out of whatever reason or the other are granted the citizenship out of a legitimate reason and are well vetted and checked. But I understand St. Kitts is a pioneer and has the system very well developed.
Well said, because and that is why we have a very robust system of due diligence to make sure that when the passport ends up in someone's hands, it is someone you would wish to be a citizen and who is not thwarting the system. And so we have a very robust system of due diligence.
Yes, thank you very much. And before we go to Denise as the last person to ask a question, I have Kevin McCarthy. He asked a question about what I think it's very important about cuisine. Kevin, you wanted to say something about this. You have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Yeah, I did. Thank you very much, Jorgen. And
where are you, Kevin? I know where you are, but tell everyone else where you are.
We're in St. Louis, Missouri, and we have a syndicated travel radio show that covers 30 stations around the United States, and our YouTube site has over 900,000 views. So, and we also write some newspaper articles. So we're very interested in travel, and as you can probably see from my picture, I like to eat as well. So we have mentioned the cuisine, and I think it's kind of been answered already. What is the unique cuisine in St. Kitts? And we certainly look forward to coming and visiting and perhaps doing a radio show.
Wonderful. Now, I know your radio shows, they're fantastic, and have been doing this probably as long as we have been doing it.
About 21 years.
Yes, it's about the same. So we're about the same age when it comes to in the publishing business. And thanks for being on our Zoom call, and thanks for the question. I give it to the minister.
And Kevin, I want to thank you because
sorry.
you've interviewed me a number of times.
I'm glad Kevin raised. Kevin, you said you're in Missouri.
Yes.
Yes, we started a connection 2-3 years ago with an airline out of Missouri. Sun? Wow.
Sun is a charter, yes, or was a charter group then, and they were flying out of actually Belleville, Illinois, and some out of St. Louis International. And I don't know if they still have that connection.
Well, we don't have that connection now, but what I was getting at, we wanted to open up that area in the Midwest for some connections in St. Kitts, but we're going to try valiantly again, because I think that's for us, that's an untapped area that we can, have some advantage.
And yeah, the one in Belleville, Illinois, which is literally just on the other side of the river, is Mid-America Airport. And they do a lot of one-offs or 2 or 3 times a week. But I can tell you from our experiences and our contacts, St. Louis International Airport is looking for more international flights, and we would certainly welcome you. And this is a market where, like today, we have about a foot of snow and 0-degree temperature with -20 wind chill. I would much rather be in St. Kitts.
Well, my temperature right now is bordering 92 degrees. lovely and sunny. And as you can see are you seeing the picture in the background of me?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
That's how the day looks today.
Why don't you rub it in?
No, well, wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. And Denise in Trinidad.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to find out, Minister, who pays when you were speaking about the protocols and so with the testing and so. You mentioned the test several times throughout the process. Who covers the cost of those tests?
Well, the costs are covered by the traveler. And for us, it's about $100 for a test.
Thank you.
And I think it's a good move because travelers should take some of this responsibility, and if you go on a vacation, $100, especially in a place like St. Kitts, is probably not that much extra money, and it benefits you directly. So I think I applaud that.
We think it's a necessary evil, So
yeah, but we're coming at the end of our event. Actually, we are about almost 25 minutes over our regular time. So that means it was interesting. You guys liked it, and I really appreciate the active participation here. I still see we have a lot of people watching us also online, and this will be repeated. So if you come back to eTurboNews in a few hours, you will see this running for the next 24 hours, so you can listen to the Honorable Minister Grant, to Peter, and to everyone else a few times before we archive it. And then like all our other events, you find them on livestream.travel and also on worldexpo.travel, I'm sorry. But this was a very interesting event. Before I let Peter close, I wanted to thank the Honorable Minister Grant for joining us so long. I know we took a lot of your time, but you really brought the island of St. Kitts quite a bit closer to everyone today. And we wish you all the best. Keep the virus out. You're doing an excellent job. And I can't wait to come to St. Kitts and maybe use some of my free nights at the Hyatt I have because of my points to see how St. Kitts really looks like. But Peter, you have the last word.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everyone who participated, of course, especially to the Honorable Minister Grant for sharing some of his precious time with all of us, afternoon, evening, morning, whatever. I think St. Kitts is a real example of a country that's using its past to look forward to its future. And when I look at St. Kitts, it's a country that has a long history, but hopefully a very happy future coming along. And that means the ability to tie past to present, past to future, and to create a wonderful present. And that's really a symbol, I think, not only of the Caribbean, but of the whole world of tourism. So I would hope that many of us would look at today's session is not only about learning the particulars of St. Kitts and Nevis, but also realizing that all of us need to appreciate what we have, think about our future, and make the world a more wonderful place in the present that God has given us. So I want to thank everyone for being with us, especially the Honorable Minister Grant. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you all have changed over the last 10 years. So one of these days, God willing, I'll be able to come back. Take care and have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. And just to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and to showcase St. Kitts and Nevis. And I want to welcome all of you to St. Kitts and Nevis, whether during the pandemic or post-pandemic. Please come down and visit us and see what we're about. So the red carpet invitation is extended to everyone. And so once again, thanks for having me. And I really, really appreciated this afternoon, morning, evening, whatever it may be, all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a special thank you also to the gentleman from Uganda. I know it's also 2 or something in the morning where you are, for hanging in there. That really, you guys are so committed. It's wonderful. Okay, good night and aloha from Hawaii. I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
At Sandals, your health and safety is our top priority, which is why we created our Platinum Protocol of Cleanliness. Now, you can have the peace of mind of knowing that while you're creating your wedding celebration, we're taking care of the rest. Sandals was built on dreams. Dreams of romantic escapes, endless possibilities, magical moments, and new beginnings. At Sandals, dreams of happily ever after still come true with a free wedding or a fully customizable one. You can feel safe saying I do to a wedding beneath a gazebo in a lush tropical garden. Or walking down a white sand aisle with an impossibly turquoise sea as your backdrop. Or even floating above the sea in an open-air, over-the-water chapel. Our venues are found in wide-open spaces, nature-made for love to blossom. Best of all, even your friends and family who can't travel with you can still be a part of your special day. Because Sandals is offering live stream services of your wedding ceremony. And while we've led the industry in health and safety protocols for nearly 40 years, our resorts are even safer and more romantic than ever before, offering you a wedding free of worries and filled with love. That includes reducing the capacity of our venues and putting more physical distance between your guests. Your guests will still have a picture-perfect view of the ceremony, but they'll be seated further apart. At your reception, instead of tables for 8, we'll have the same size tables, but only seat 6 guests per table. And we've eliminated buffets and specialty food stations, so all food will be plated and served by Sandals staff wearing masks. At Sandals, the honeymoon of your dreams begins the moment you say, I do. And we are once again setting a new standard of excellence with our Platinum Protocol of Cleanliness to ensure it's unforgettable and worry-free. With extensive research from local ministries and health officials, the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, we've instituted advanced hygiene practices across 18 touch points. A triple check system that includes inspecting, cleaning, and sanitizing hard surfaces and common areas every 20 minutes. Adding auto-dispensing hand sanitizing stations throughout the resort. To ensure the utmost safety, Sandals will be using hospital-grade disinfectants, electrostatic sprayers for advanced cleaning, UV lighting equipment to inspect cleanliness, and air duct sanitization for each room before every guest's arrival. We've gone so far as to steam clean and sanitize carpeting and flooring prior to arrivals, and placing personal hand sanitizers in every guest room. For added safety, all staff members are required to wear protective face gear at all times. And from now on, guests will be able to begin their Sandals experience before even leaving their house. Guests can check in online at home, which lets them bypass the front desk and go directly to their rooms. Stricter physical distancing protocols have also been put in place in every part of the resort. In addition, all of our spa facilities and sports equipment will be sanitized before and after use with hospital-grade disinfectants. We're also committed to providing a dedicated quality inspection team at each resort to ensure strict compliance and implementation of these safety protocols, so that our guests can enjoy a 5-star luxury-included vacation that's 100% worry-free. We can't wait to help make your dreams come true with a destination wedding and honeymoon at Sandals. And while you're creating 1,000 worry-free moments, we'll take care of the rest.